Today we are talking about shame. And this is like such a big topic. Like, where do you begin and how do you talk about it in like 5 minutes? And before rolling into our yoga class, some folks may see the topic and they'll say, "Oh, yep, that I know about that." And some folks may see or hear it and they be like, that's not a that I don't have a problem with shame. Like that's never something that I have to deal with. And it's those folks that are probably the most interesting to talk about, this topic with. So, shame is a natural human emotion. And when we talk about it, we often pair it with guilt. And I say we, I'm just sort of speaking in generalities, guilt and shame, things that we uh, contend with from time to time throughout our life. And the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt um, is the idea that I did something wrong, what we feel when we think I did something wrong. Shame is what we feel when we think there's something wrong with me. And whether it's I did something wrong because there's something wrong with me or there's just something wrong with me. And what goes hand in hand with shame, which really makes it tricky and interesting at times, is fear, shame and fear. Um, the fear of, and when it when it's associated with shame, it's the fear of not being accepted. The fear that if they knew this thing about me, or they know this thing about me, they others will not respect me, accept me, love me, deem me to be worthy of that. And perhaps, you know, they'll deem me to be unworthy because I am unworthy. And it's that feeling of um, or thought of unworthiness is what really feeds into shame. And shame, if you look at the article attached to the post, it references Brene Brown, who is an awesome speaker and researcher, and her whole thing is about shame and vulnerability. And she talks about it, and this and one thing that she talks about is how, well, we'll just say this, how shame thrives in secrecy and hiding it, you know, um, and being silent and not talking about it. And, we keep these aspects of ourselves hidden from others because of this fear that we won't be accepted or will lose someone's love and admiration and all of that jazz. Um, we hide it. And that fear can be so great that we even hide it from ourselves. And hence, someone not even recognizing that shame is even there, like that our mind is a beautiful, complicated thing. And we all develop all of these ego defenses that are unconscious, our way of defending and guarding ourselves against, things, ideas. And we come up with all kinds of tricks to hide things from ourselves, to hide this uh, shame from ourselves, whether it be projection, you know, intellectualizing things, denial. It can go to the extent of creating alternate realities where, what I did or this thing about me doesn't even exist. Like, no. um, it it really is an interesting thing. And, it can be, this fear and the thought can be so painful that um, it really can be so hard to get to, to even acknowledge that it's there. And when that, and like I said, shame thrives in silence and secrecy and in darkness, you know. And when that is happening, it can consume our lives and really take over, and can manifest in so many ways, in addictions, whether that's to substances or food or sex or work. Um, these defenses that I talk about are projecting onto others and blaming others and everyone else, for everything. Abuse. Um, it that fear can stop us from looking at ourselves, and seeing ourselves clearly, because we're afraid of what we'll find, you know. And that leads us to be unable to see others clearly and have empathy for others and care for others, when we are so unconsciously consumed by this fear, And so, what's the antidote? um, the and I'll refer back to Brene Brown here and what she says. Three things that are important in reducing the power of shame, and that is courage, compassion, and connection. And, you know, just even the idea of recognizing that it's there takes courage. And that's like the first step, how to reduce the power of shame. Bring it out of the dark, bring it into the light. um, Say its name. uh, Connect with someone. Now, having clear and safe boundaries is important. Like, you don't go share your story with everyone or anyone. You share your story with someone who, like Brene Brown says, has earned the right to hear your story. Because another thing that shame, that gives shame power is judgment. And most of the time, it's self judgment. We're judging ourselves all the time, right? That internal critic. And when we um, put ourselves in a vulnerable space or place with others, that takes courage. That is an important aspect of living a full and wholehearted life, is being with vulnerability and having the courage to be vulnerable. And it's, you know, when we open ourselves to someone or show ourselves to someone and we receive something that sounds like judgment, because we've been judging ourselves, we We either, whether they were judging or not, we that's our trigger, right? It triggers us to shrink right back into that dark space when we perceive judgment from others. And whether others, what others do, whether they are prone to judgment or not, when people are prone to judging others, they're also, that's, it starts within ourselves. That's all about them. What other people do, it's all about what's going on within their own internal, you know, construct and how they react to things. It has nothing to do with us, and the same vice versa. Um, what we perceive, if we take it personally, if it hits a button, if it triggers us, it means we're telling that to ourselves, that piece of judgment. So remembering, accepting ourselves, connecting with ourselves, and loving and accepting ourselves. It starts with that, which will allow us to be to to be able to more love and connect with others, and not take things personally. And that's the key. So um, that connection is important. And really, this whole idea of shame really points to just how much we need each other, like how much we are communal beings, and how much our being in life is so interconnected, how we're so interconnected, and that this idea of acceptance and belonging is so important to us. And so what it all boils down to this is knowing that we are enough, that we belong, before all of the stories of who we say we are, to ourselves. Those are all stories. That who we are is that is a limited idea of who we are. Who we are is beyond that. It's much greater than that. And we are loved, and we are worthy of it, and we are enough, and that is just the truth. And all of the things that we may say to ourselves otherwise is a lie. So why am I talking about this? And for yoga, at the start of a yoga class, is because that's what yoga is all about. These the antidotes: courage, compassion, connection. That's what the practice of yoga is all about. So it's a we do it, and we practice it, and practice. That's life. That's living skillfully. So here we are. Welcome to class. Let's do it. So let's find ourselves here. Hi, Patrice. And uh, settle in. How about we start on our backs this morning?